Let's try that all fucking again, because that was awful. Welcome back to Obscurity Report, the show on Visited by Voices, where we take an obscure film and give it a pass around the round table. I'm joined today by Daniel Shine.
How's it going?
It is going, sir. Anything exciting in your world?
It's a big wrestling week, so
nothing then.
nothing of note for you. No.
Awesome. As always, also joined by Sam.
Hello, everybody.
Sam and I were just together just a couple hours ago for a live show, so it feels like nothing has changed.
Yep.
Also joined by Jonathan from Boombastic Reviews.
Yo.
Did you just shoot me?
I did.
Well, you missed me and hit Christian. How do you feel
Sorry
about
about that, Christian.
It's went by the side of my head. I'm fine.
that? Okay.
Yeah. It's not a Blu-ray, though. I mean,
Got the shelf.
Oh, my
Got
God.
the shelf.
drinking coffee at like 10
That whole
o'clock in the
shelf
morning.
could come down because you shot it. Wouldn't be a first.
Wouldn't be
No.
the first time.
Obviously, also joined by Christian Hannah Horror.
Glad to
What
be
is up,
back,
man?
man.
Wouldn't have anyone but you.
No. Yeah, man, it's going good. I'm so excited. I was really devastated. I tried to get the Monster Mash cereal the other day, couldn't find it. I'm hoping next weekend's going to be my weekend. I want to get the whole schmear, the mini bags, the individual cereal boxes, the Monster Mash cereal itself. So,
Do you guys remember when I pitched this idea like a year ago? Well, the Monster Mash thing was my concept. I'm glad it exists, but
I got close to it today at Sam's. It wasn't the Monster
you were
Mash
visiting
cereal.
Sam? Sam,
Yes,
you let
Sam.
him into your house?
Yeah.
No,
I
you
was
were
at
just at
Sam's.
one of my clubs. It's fine.
Okay.
Don't
Yes.
get the clubs. Okay.
I have a membership card. It's fine. They
You
they don't have
membership card to get in.
the Monster Mash. They just have like a bundle of each cereal wrapped up, and it says Monster Mash. So
So you
That's
were close to it, but you didn't buy it?
no, it's close. It was
Why-
Monster Mash, but it wasn't all in one box. It was 3 separate boxes.
Why do I think
wrapped around?
that in Kentucky they took last year's product that didn't sell, put a band around it, and put it on the shelf?
It's I mean it's possible.
Maybe Charles Band is running your grocery stores out there. Found vintage boxes in a warehouse.
Yeah, it was wild.
What does this box of Blueberry say Wizard Video on the bottom?
Legit vintage.
Word out to the Blueberry.
There you go.
Nice.
Yeah. I have not been able to find it yet either. I keep looking everywhere. I believe that Target has a big buy on it, so that's probably your safest bet. That when it hits, they're going to have that big end cap.
Mhm.
But I haven't found it anywhere either yet. I'm dying for it. I was in a Spirit Halloween today, however.
Oh, nice. We don't get those
yeah.
here.
Get your pirate costume?
There's not going to be a pirate costume.
Oh,
I
it
was
has
thinking
to.
Dr. Evil costume.
I do not like. Is that all you have? It's like bald jokes, sir?
Short
Is
notice.
that,
That's all I come up with.
and
Is that
short
a
jokes.
joke?
Yeah.
We're both short. It doesn't. We're both short. It doesn't work.
It's pretty true. I actually felt pretty good when I'm meeting up with you guys in Louisville. I didn't feel as short as I felt like I was going to feel because there was a couple of us.
Nah, Corey's the only one that's freakishly tall.
Yeah, I felt okay. That doesn't always happen. All right. Anyway, I bought a Ouija planchette that's about that big for the wall. That was pretty exciting. It has glass in it. It's pretty cool.
I'm interested. I looked it up.
Wasn't
Planchette.
she-
I loved her on Bob Newhart. So sorry.
Wow.
I'm so
I
sorry.
got it. I'll be impressed if there's at least 2 people that might get that one.
Sometimes you go to sleep one night, you wake up
Yes.
in your earlier sitcom. It just happens.
Weird.
Larry Darrell.
So-
Maybe with your Spirit Halloween store story.
Nah, that's it. I got that and a pair of
you get the
socks.
planchette.
I got the planchette and a pair of socks, and that's it. But not everything's out because they just don't have the store stocked yet. And a lot of it is like last year's product. It's just, but I just walk into those places and it, as generic as it is, because it is, let's face it, like it's the same crap mostly every year. But man, it just makes me hope this summer can be gone and we can get into fall and I can enjoy the season, man.
Yeah.
I
like,
agree.
Absolutely. Like me and Chris have been trying to summon Halloween and fall as fast as possible. So we went to Bath and Body Works and got all the fall candles. And so
Amen.
I've been burning pumpkin pecan waffles.
Oh, those are so good. The Walmart ones, great value.
No, just Bath and Body Works. But like
okay.
pumpkin pecan waffles smells like breakfast.
Yeah.
It tastes terrible though.
If you eat the candle, yes. But so Chris is burning a
It's
different.
less the taste, the more the texture is the problem.
Yeah. Well, Chris was burning incense in his room, and then I have a candle in my room, and so like the upstairs portion of the house just smells like a very aggressive brunch. And not really making fall happen, but I'm trying.
I already decorated the inside part of my house, so I just said screw it. I just want to feel it early. So
Yes.
I mean, it's August. I mean, for us, that's like, it's go time.
Yeah.
close
Now,
enough.
so.
Absolutely. Anyway, today we are talking about Beware My Brethren. Beware My Brethren is a film from 1972. It was also known, in fact, the way I first originally saw it, it was under the title The Fiends. It was produced and directed by Robert Hartford Davis. It stars Ann Todd, who most people, if they know her at all, know her from the great noir, The Return of Bulldog Drummond from 1934. It also stars Tony Beckley, who, this is kind of a show-stopping psycho performance. He had been mainly a TV actor, though he was in the original Italian Job and the original Get Carter. Also has a small role in The Revenge of the Pink Panther. So great career there. But most importantly for horror fans, it stars Patrick McGee. Patrick McGee came out of the Corman factory during the 60s. His resume is filled with horror films and genre work in general. This is a guy who was in Dementia 13. He was in The Skull. He was in Die Monster Die. He was in Clockwork Orange. He was in Asylum. He was in Demons of the Mind. And now the screaming starts. Barry Lyndon, The Monster Club, and Lucio Fulci's The Black Cat the same year he died. So this is horror royalty that we don't discuss nearly enough. Maybe not on the Lugosi Karloff level, but certainly probably more important to the genre than a lot of the modern guys that we kind of mention all the time, if we're being fair.
I agree. That's one hell of a resume. And Asylum, I love Asylum so much.
Yeah.
Big Black Cat fan. Love that one.
Black Cat. The funny thing about this guy is this is a guy who worked for Hammer, Corman. He worked for Stanley Kubrick, and he just across the spread. Also, a lot of television work, a lot of cult television work. Just an incredible performance here in this film as well. But we'll get to that. I want to start off by just asking everyone, how did you come into contact with the film? I know a lot of you are going to say I forced you to watch it, but let's start with Dan, who might have a different story.
Well, I actually saw it ages ago as The Fiend as well, which was very, very heavily cut from my memory. And I picked up the Blu-ray when Vinegar Syndrome put it out, and it was kind of like seeing it for the first time, to be honest, because I remember liking it, but I think, well, we'll get into the opinion, but yeah, felt like the first time, even though it wasn't.
It's always good when it feels like the first time. Sam.
Well,
Yeah, well, you made me watch it, so yeah. I mean, you did make me watch it, but I watched on YouTube, and I know that you said something about scenes missing from that version.
Yeah, it's the old DVD version which was cut.
Oh crap!
The British DVD, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's how I stumbled upon it.
Jonathan.
I'm contractually obligated to watch whatever you tell me to.
I'm
So
just here
that's
so
what
I
I
don't
did.
get fined.
Yeah. This is exactly. I'm here so I don't get fined.
Awesome. So Jonathan is going to have a special assignment of watching the 1977 film Him next. Christian.
Yeah, no shame. I hadn't never heard of this film before, and watched it on YouTube. And right off the bat, I'll just say it. I mean, this has been my favorite. It topped Dracula. Didn't think it would, but if it's something about religion, I'm in. I'm in, and I enjoyed it. I want to see it uncut. I guess is uncut the proper word for it, so
Yeah.
to speak. I got the Blu-ray. Wait, I got to get the Blu-ray because I want to see. I want to see it full force now.
You might want to jump on that only because the last sale did wipe out the stock at Severn. So unknown whether they're going to restock it or not. Right now, I think it's still fairly cheap on the aftermarket, but it probably won't stay that way. So you might want to jump on that. All right, so let's. Oh well, I mean, again, I saw it originally on VHS as The Fiend. I can't say I have great memories of it. I was renting 3 movies, at a time for a weekend during high school, and this was one of them. The package did not look promising, so I didn't jump at this title either. But it always had a weird, compelling nature to me because of the religiosity of the film, and also because it was just so unapologetic about its story. So I've always kind of liked it, but then when I was able to see it uncut, I fell pretty deeply in love. And that's going to be a theme on these Obscurity reports, because if you haven't figured it out, I'm not going to have people view films that I don't think are worth anything. That's just never going to happen. So the idea behind this show has always been to try and get people to go outside their comfort zone, put down the hockey mask and the razor glove, and maybe try something a little bit different. So,
excuse my mug, by the way. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, I have a life-size Jason behind me. I can't really say that much. But, so Dan, let's start with your 20,000 feet view of this film.
Well, so I was actually glad you picked it because British horror, particularly around this time, everybody tends to talk Hammer and, well, Amicus, and to a lesser extent Tygon, and I love those companies, but particularly when you get into the 70s, you're at a point where British film got really mean-spirited, and I think a lot of it was reaction to the conservative politics at the time, and we don't talk enough about Pete Walker or Norman J. Warren. There was some very fascinating films made around this time that go ignored. 10 Rillington Place, a lot of these that have a lot of comparisons to this film with the serial killer angle that was based on John Christie's crimes. One that I know you're a fan of, Lauren, I Start Counting, a David Green film. A lot of those,
Awesome.
and nobody talks about them. I mean, so it really, this one fits tonight. There was a whole lot of what the hell is this when Vinegar Syndrome announced the Blu-ray, and I really love it. I think seeing this, obviously, in the uncut version especially, I think it really elevates it. Patrick McGee can do no wrong. Living legend. No, he's gone. But he is a legend. Sorry, guys. Maybe I wanted to believe he was still around. But there's a lot of unique things about it. I mean, this is religious horror, but a lot of that, the religious horror coming out of the UK tended to lean towards pagan type horror as the sort of threat. This is kind of based on like a Christian cult, which I thought was interesting, and I just love the downbeat, mean-spirited nature of these movies. Tony Beckley, who plays the killer, where there's no mystery towards who the killer is, so I'm not spoiling anything. Just so authentic. Something about the British actors of this time. I mean, a Peeping Tom, another one I know you've mentioned before, but this one, I don't know why. I guess because of the heavy cuts, but it doesn't get the attention that it deserves, because it's a masterclass in acting, and I hope people hopefully I'm selling you on venturing out and watching some of the Pete Walker and some of these guys' films.
Because, you bring up the cast, Dan. I was going to hit on the same thing. I mean, Macaulay Culkin, Cloris Leachman, Bruce Willis. Star-studded.
Yeah, Bruce Willis still cared back then, so I thought he was really good.
Absolutely.
Sam, your 20,000 feet view.
Well, I had to go and watch it twice because I couldn't understand what they were saying, because my brain doesn't process things correctly a lot of times. And the captions on the YouTube version, not the greatest. I didn't dislike it. Overall, I mean, I think it's a movie that is worth watching for sure. For me, religious horror doesn't really hit the sweet spot. For me, it's not like the religious aspect doesn't terrify me. And in this, I feel like the cult was very similar to what you'd find in real life. Oh, no medicine, no pets, just no fun, no nothing, right? Like, yeah, that sounds like it's pretty much, that sounds like reality. So nothing really super bone chilling about it. I actually thought that the relationship between Kenny, who's played by Tony Beckley, our killer, and his mother, that was actually scarier. It's that weird covert incest thing going on, where she's pretty much turned him into, I guess, basically like a husband replacement without, I mean, there are some weird sexual innuendos between the two of them, just some weird vibes. And I don't want to think about that too much. But covert incest in general is really toxic, and it makes sense that, feeling like he's that repressed growing up in that environment and having no power whatsoever, because literally all the power lies with the church, and then his mother is like the only person who loves him. Like, I am not surprised you have psychological issues, and I am not surprised you out here killing women. But you're making some sick mixtapes for him. Gotta give him that. But I thought that was the scarier part of this for me. Also because, I've known men like that, too. And just, one or two, which, considering, I've had dude friends my whole life, I mean, that's pretty good ratio. That's pretty good ratio. But, it's still kind of that's pretty scary.
I definitely want to get into the mom's sexuality at some point, because that's one of the more fascinating motifs in this film. But Jonathan, 20,000 feet, sir.
Man, I mean, first off, I didn't see the twist coming. I mean, spoiler. I mean, Bruce Willis was dead the whole time. And Haley Joel Osment could see him, but nobody else could. But you only really pick that up on that second viewing if you go back and watch it. Aside from that, man, I teared up a little bit when Andy gave all the toys away to the little girl before he went off to college. And yeah, man, I mean, it was just emotional roller coaster for me. I loved it.
Got me in the feels too, Jonathan.
It did, man. I mean, he's walking off. The toys are all looking at him. It's great.
To be fair, Jonathan, you're an easy mark.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I saw it.
I mean that one day I told you the story about how I no longer had any of my childhood toys. You started crying.
Yeah, man, it's sad. I mean, it's sad, man. My mom kept all mine.
Yeah, that's a little creepy, actually. The room being still exactly the same as the day you left for grade school.
No, they just packed all my shit up and put it in an attic.
Not their attic, just an attic.
Yeah, just an attic, off the property.
I'm pretty sure I was told if I didn't take it when I was leaving the house that it was not going to be there when I got back.
Nah, it's not my mom at all. I was an only child growing up, though.
Oh, there's a lot of scrapbooks in your life. Christian, your 20,000 foot view of the film.
Yeah, I mean, Dan and Sam are way more eloquent than I could ever be. But like I said before, I love this. I really liked it. You know, religious kind of stuff is my thing. Without getting too personal, my upbringing was very religious, and I've seen corruption. I don't know how else to say it. And I think what's so cool about this film is, to me, it was so blatant at what it was trying to show. And it seems weird that religion is still like a taboo thing with a lot of people, and some studios won't touch it. But you got movies like this that are just, they don't, it doesn't care. And I loved it. I love the opening, that ghastly strangling murder with that song, like almost like a jazzy gospel. I loved it. I thought it was great. When I saw that scene too, I was like, yeah, this is going to be like a hidden gem to me that I never would have found otherwise. Um, but I dug it. Like I said, I feel silly that I don't own the Blu-ray, because I feel like I'm missing some great stuff from this cut version that I can't comment on, because obviously I hadn't seen those parts. But loved it. I thought the performances were fantastic. The guy, Patrick McGee, I mean, amazing.
He looks like Dr. Wily from Mega Man.
He does, doesn't he? Yeah, yeah. Great film. It's my favorite pick so far. It's hard. We could talk about more stuff as you bring it up, because I'm not good at bringing stuff up. But
Oh, no problem.
overall reaction was just my overall reaction was just like, you goddamn right, man. Like, what a film. What a film that just, it spearheads it's what it's commenting on, and that kind of thing. Without the other element, there's other elements too, like we were talking about with the mom and stuff, which, yeah, I picked up on that too. But the religious stuff is what I was almost like, I just was rooting for the film, because it was not stopping at what it was trying to say. I just dug that a lot.
So I do this a lot, but I feel like it's important. This film came out 3 years after Night of the Living Dead. To understand how far ahead this movie was, there was no slasher scene. The giallo scene existed, but was much more of crime dramas. I mean, we don't have the Argento archetype when this movie really comes out. This movie is probably not influential because it's such an obscurity. You don't meet people who know this movie. You just don't. It does not come up in conversation. And yet, it had all the ingredients to change the horror genre at the time it came out, which is one of the reasons I wanted it on the show. The other thing I think is really worth mentioning about this movie is that it's ridiculously well made. I think we all expect, especially when it's like a lesser known title, that, I might really like it, but you probably won't have the best acting. The special effects will probably be shitty. It might not make complete sense. There'll be scenes that obviously should have been left on the cutting room floor. And then there's this movie, which is completely tight in all those aspects. This is like a real film with a capital F. And yet, maybe because the title sounds kind of like exploitation, maybe because the posters were outright exploitation, but its reputation doesn't match the film. And I think it's something that people who like the genre, even passingly, should have an awareness of. And then people who love the genre, this should be that film that they pull out of their back pocket and start talking about, hey, but do you like Beware My Brother? Because to me, it's that strong. Especially considering when it was made and the fact that there was nothing really going on like it.
I hadn't even thought about that. Completely went over my head, forgetting the date it came out and stuff like that. It really was ahead of its time.
And the other thing, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to just say, it is also that film that I think Hammer, if they had maybe made a little bit sooner and got off the Gothic horror train, which, unfortunately, I love those movies, but I don't know, and maybe that's part of it. I think when we go back to this particular era, it's like, same thing with people in the slashers. It's like, well, I want Dracula, I want Christopher Lee. Although I will throw out there a Hammer film that is pretty good is Die, Die, My Darling, which has some similar religious themes. I think that might have been before this, but around the same time. But Yeah, I don't know, and there's several like this. Also a little bit earlier, but Twisted Nerve. I think that might have been 68 or 69, and nobody. I mean, I doubt anybody would know what that is, but it's a fantastic movie. So I don't know. It's just that particular style that didn't, I guess, just didn't endure, and it's sad.
And it's kind of interesting too, because when people talk about the birth of the slasher film, which I'll always go back to Night of Terror, which is the 30s. So obviously we're talking way before this, but people talk, well, was Halloween the first real slasher film? No, 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 no. That was Black Christmas. No, that was Psycho. No, that was Peeping Tom. And you can pick your poison. Like obviously Psycho is way before this. Well, not really. It's before this by 12 years, right? But
Couple presidents.
yeah, but I mean, relatively, it's not that far. But the thing is, this film has really a lot of the ingredients that we would associate immediately with the slasher genre without having to kind of squint. The stalk and slash sequences are here. The graphic on-screen murders are here. They're not waiting to be there. They're not insinuating. They're on screen.
Mm-hmm.
And even that staple of post Friday 13th slashers, which is mommy or daddy issues. Well, this film is just reveling in them.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that Victor Miller necessarily knew Beware My Brethren before, as he was writing Friday the 13th, but I'm saying that this film really set the stage. And I just feel like it needed to be a lot more noticed, and it needs a lot more love in the community. So let's talk about the religious aspect of it, because obviously that is a cornerstone of the film. And I want to start with Sam on that. Sam, what did you think of how they used religion in the film as kind of like a substitute for any other mania?
Well, I mean, I'm gonna be perfectly honest. Like, I don't come from a particularly religious upbringing. I went to Lutheran school for years and went to Catholic school for a couple, but like my family's never been especially religious. So none of this like really strikes a chord with me, and it's hard for me to connect to movies that are religious in nature, except when it comes to, when you're connecting things like religion to some sort of mental illness, because it's like, oh, mental illness, no, I can relate, that's fine. But for this, it didn't, I wasn't really getting that same vibe. And I don't know if that's because the relationship between Kenny and his mother was overshadowing that for me, as that was what I was focusing on, versus the fact that it's just like, well, it's probably not it's probably not religion that fucked this woman up and caused her to turn into this abusive monster. I don't think it was that. I think that she was probably already on the way, and religion just kind of like pushed her, just gave her a nice healthy push. So, it's hard. Like, again, I just put the psychological aspect above the religious one, and I think the rest of you guys are going to have better takes on this than I do, because I just can't. I just have trouble connecting with these things.
Jonathan.
Well, I mean, it's certainly the best of the VeggieTales series, like by far. It's not very subtle, is my only complaint, though. I really wanted something you had to dig a little deeper into. It's very surface. So Bob and Larry, we all know what's going on there. So that's all I have really to say about it.
Christian.
Yeah, I completely see where Sam's coming from on that. I liked how direct the religious stuff was, because to me, I've seen movies that almost you could call it subtlety, but I think it's directors who are scared of their own movies, and I don't think that Robert Hartford Davis was scared of his own movie at all. That's how I saw it. So I thought it was spearheaded. I think if you're gonna do a movie like that talks about, because it's weird, because you could get into religion. Well, ultimately, it's the people that run the organizations and what they do that are ultimately responsible for the hell that they cause people and how they manipulate people's minds and stuff. Um, and I think that's, and it's hard to really explain, but simply put, I mean, you asked how we felt it was spearheaded. I thought perfectly, because you got a director who's not afraid. He's not afraid at all to tell the story he's telling and show it. There's no subtlety at all, and I just love that. I think if you're gonna show the dark side of religion, and there is one, show it. And I thought he did it perfectly. Really did. That was my favorite aspect of it. But there's personal reasons that I love these kinds of movies that I won't get into. But a lot of people have those kinds of stories. But perfect. I thought he spearheaded it like a grown ass man. That's how I feel about it.
It was definitely very well done, and I don't want to take anything away from the story as how it was written. What I wanted to just make clear is just like, for me, I just couldn't like relate to it on like my own personal level. And, like, it didn't resonate super strong, but no, I mean, it's definitely balls out like, hey, this is what's happening, and I liked it. I mean, I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Dan.
Well, I grew up somewhat religious. Like my parents, I went to Catholic school, so I definitely had a sense of that. And my parents weren't, fanatics about things. Obviously a horror kid, so I didn't have much of a choice. It's who I was. But I knew some kids that definitely could have ended up like Kenny. It's very I knew of one kid later on who was not allowed to play football because the mom thought the cheerleaders would tempt him. And so,
well,
there is some crazy...
The mom might have had a point.
Well, yes, but nonetheless, it probably wasn't too fun being him, and I imagine he probably did. Probably grew up to be a serial killer. So like I said, I knew some potential Kennys back then, and I don't think it's just religion. There's some seed in that head that is going to latch on to whatever. It just happened to be religion with the mother in this film. She obviously had certain desires and things there that and a meanness that some people are just mean, but I think it's actually pretty accurate, and it is true when you watch that beginning. It's not that far away from certain religions, certain religious beliefs. I mean, I could have seen that. It's not that far from what I saw in church, really. But yeah, and the carrot, it doesn't get any better. I think the carrot outs, did even better than Patrick McGee in this movie. It was just riveting.
Did anyone else get the impression that the meanness of Mrs. Weems was worse because she was trying to do it from a place of love?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
super ick.
Yeah. Well, that's the next subject. We'll get there. I just wanted to say, like, it's funny because we talk about this being a religiously themed horror, and I think a lot of people, if they haven't seen it, might be getting the wrong impression. This is not in any way a kind of Exorcist, Omen type of film.
No.
This is a film about obsession and about broken people who obsess over doctrine. So in that way, it's much more like Alice, Sweet Alice or Saint Maud than The Exorcist or The Omen. But what's interesting, I think, about it is there's very few characters in this film. If you really cut it down, we basically cycle through the same, 6 or 7 characters for almost every scene, unless there are, a red shirt, in which case, in actually this film's case, they're not wearing shirts at that point. But I think that it's just fascinating how economical this film is, and yet it never feels small. I felt the size of London. I believe it's London in the film. I felt it. I felt like a really formed city around these characters, even though they're basically only in a few locations. Very few external shots. Even some of the external shots are obviously sets, but it never feels that way. And I think that the other thing is the murder sequences here are all kind of prolonged. None of these are easy, fast deaths. And I think that really helps us because as we kind of, sort of get sympathetic to Kenny at moments, we have to remind him of just how horrible what this guy is doing. He's not just shooting people from a distance. He's up and close and personal. He's drowning girls in swimming pools. And we have to... This isn't like in a movie where he holds someone under and then we cut. No. Yeah. We get the full struggle. We get the 3 minutes of what it would take to drown someone. In one of the more infamous scenes, cut from many prints, we get to see that is borrowed later by a Friday the 13th film, not my favorite Friday the 13th film, in which a flashlight is jammed down a girl's throat. And it's not a quick cut. It's not a second unit insert shot. This is a protracted sequence of us being able to see light glowing through this girl's mouth and throat as her esophagus is cut off and she's dying in this horrific way. Again, 1972, 3 years after Night of the Living Dead. But I think the movie is about mania, and I think it's about how the concept of family is very disjointed from that ultra religiosity. And that's going to lead us to, of course, the mom and the priest played by Patrick McGee to a degree. So, and I say priest, but I mean pastor clearly because this is not a Catholic film. So, obviously the mom intimates that she has lesbian leanings that she's not willing to embrace. She also has weird feelings towards her son as a replacement for the husband who abandoned her because she's Looney Tunes.
This is what happens when you're in an extreme dry spell.
Yeah.
Does it have a pulse? Yes. All right, let's go.
Well, that would have been the solution. We wouldn't have had a problem if that happened. But it's interesting because the movie kind of is fearless about that too. Like as nasty as the murder sequences are, I think the scenes of her manipulating people around her son with a more than maternal aspect, so glaringly obvious, are even more uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, they really are. I don't mean to downplay that either, because that's totally there. You know, as much as there's a lot to it, man. Like I said, the guy who made this movie, he did not hold back on pretty much anything. He was any aspect of it, because it was uncomfortable at times watching the relationship and yeah, man, yeah. This film is it's a gut punch, you know.
Sam, you were saying?
Oh, sorry. When you were mentioning the mother's lesbian leanings, so do you think that was part of the reason why she was always asking her son about if he's met someone? Or do you think that I felt like that was more like her just being territorial of her son?
Living through and then punishing.
Yeah, perhaps.
I mean, you may remember early in the film she touches another female character and feels a need to confess it, and she's not allowed to finish that line of dialogue. And that's very intentional. And the worst thing about it is the priest gets it. He knows where it's going, so this is not new. This has happened before.
Okay.
And rather than doing the right thing, which would be to try to help her in some way to come to grips with her feelings, he actively asks her to repress them and then adds a violent element to it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's basically the guideline she used to raise her kid. And he ends up what he is. I mean, this film, from all outward impressions, people would think is a dumb exploitation film, but it is a really accurate view of how to build a serial killer.
Yeah.
Much more than this is like when Rob Zombie's Halloween, which I'm not going to get into the Rob Zombie Halloween thing, but like he tried to do this. Now, it doesn't work, I don't think, personally, in his Halloween film, but this is what he tried to do. Precisely.
Yeah. You know what? I was going to say, this movie to me, and I could be wrong, this how I saw this movie. When I was watching it, I was like, damn it, this is like if Maniac had a legitimate backstory to it. And you understood what the hell is going on with this guy. You know what I mean? That's what came to my mind watching this film. So, which sometimes it's not. You don't need to know the backstory, but if the backstory's good and it's the backstory, if backstory's good, then cheers. Like this film. So, I loved it. I loved it, man.
Just have Spinell do a British accent, and you're good.
Well, unfortunately,
more or less.
Him and Patrick McGee will not be doing the
won't.
remake anytime soon. So, obviously uncomfortable. But one of the aspects I want to talk about with that sexuality in the film and how it's weaponized as well, right? And yes, it's weaponized by religion, but the religion is, again, it's not about religion, it's about mania. That's important. Like, all these characters have devoted so much to this thing that you get the impression it could have been anything. The same way Maud and Saint Maud could have gotten obsessed about anything. And in fact, at a point in that movie, she becomes obsessed with the idea of sex before going back to religiosity. It's the same concept, right? And How Sweet Alice, again, that obsession, not religion, the obsession about religion. So I feel the film kind of indicts, especially male viewers as well, with all the TNA that is in the film and with even just the short skirts on all the female characters. Like, it's enticing us with male gaze and then saying, hey, wait, you want to see where that can go? You might not like it. And it's fascinating because other films have done it. Peeping Tom did the same thing, although its time period didn't let it do it as explicitly. But I think it's one of the film's great achievements that by the end, you had both sympathy for the killers and the victims, and it doesn't affect the drama of the situation. In fact, the priest who doesn't, besides not allowing someone to take not allowing someone to take their medicine, which could be murder, I guess, he doesn't outwardly project violence. It's all inward. But he becomes the ultimate villain of the piece. Even above the guy who's just rammed a flashlight down a woman's throat, right? That's fascinating to me.
He's definitely the source of all villainy in this movie. Like, you could trace it back to him. But yeah, it's not explicit. It's all done very through manipulations. And I think it's just the insidiousness, which is just... I think that's the creepiest part.
Yeah.
So, if you guys were going to give this thing a rating, do it your own way, whether that's 1 to 10, Schoolhouse, however you want to rate this film, where exactly would you put it? Let's start with Dan.
Well, on Flesh Wound, we do it 0 to 5. I would give this one a 5. I think it's a classic film. I think you definitely should see it. And one side point, just because it came up earlier, controversial opinion, Bay of Blood is a better film than Friday the 13th. And it copied them anyways. So
It's not controversial, I'd agree.
Oh.
Yeah.
I love Bavan. What are you watching? That's an insane
Well,
thing.
I know you would agree, but yeah.
Well, no. I mean, I think Friday is a way better film than Bay of Blood. Bay of Blood. Bay of Blood has focus problems, but we'll get into that on a different show. Sam, how would you rate this film?
I would probably put it 2.75 out of 5. Well, mostly because I want to, I would like to give it higher, but I'd also like to see what, the missing scenes and kind of digest it further. I think it's just a fucking really layered movie, and I haven't peeled back all of them yet. I have to sit and think it's a movie I have to sit and think about.
I recommend you do that. What's missing basically is a lot of nudity and violence, extended violence sequences. The British censors had a problem with nudity and violence, and especially nudity and blood being on screen at the same time. Yeah. And this film violates. Yeah, well, America was no better at the time. This film violates that rule several times. So.
To be fair, I should also watch a better transfer of it. So
I agree.
I'm really considering possibly, looking for the DVD because I mean, what's on YouTube is it's just I can't.
Yeah.
It's painful.
Yeah.
Jonathan, where would you place this in your rankings?
On a scale from A to Z, I give it a solid Q. It's definitely.
That's a conspiracy theory right there.
Hey, you read into that? What
YouTube is going to shut this stream down.
It is. It's better than the first three, for sure. Not quite as good as the last one, but better than the first three for sure.
And Christian,
I can only rate what I've seen. Obviously, as it's been mentioned numerous times in here, there is a Blu-ray that has more footage, as you stated. I would realistically, as much as I this is my favorite pick so far, I'd go 3 out of 5 stars. They go 3 out of 5 stars. I'd like to see a better version of it. I'd like to see it a couple more times, and like Sam said, digest it a little bit better. But I would recommend. I was actually going to tell one of my friends, Lee Drum Dums. He's a big giallo guy, and I've had conversations, and he'll watch movies that some legit giallos that aren't really popular. I'm talking stuff that's not directed by Lucio or Dario, those other guys. And this is a movie I was actually going to say, dude, you got to check this out. I think you'd actually like this. So I was actually going to let him know about this because he could really push it on some people too if he happened to review it as well. So, but 3 out of 5. 3 out of 5. I think that's fair. But I love it. I love it. End of the day.
I would give it an A-, which is a very high score for me. Like a very high score for me. It takes a lot to get out of the B's. A film that's a B, I love. It goes a little bit. This goes a step further in that every time I sit down to watch it, and I don't sit down to watch it nearly enough, I realize. Every time I sit down, I'm just blown away by how good it is. The writer in me loves this film. The gorehound in me loves this film. Not that it's a bloodbath all the time, but it's pretty violent. If you like the "What Have They Done to Your Daughters" series of films with Alamente, it's very similar to this. Yeah. So Christian does a good job calling it out as a giallo because this is kind of as close as a British film ever came.
Yeah.
Complete with the music cues, kind of giving you that feel too. I think this is one of those films that I hope does eventually find an audience. I'd love to see it get a Shudder presence or even show up on the last drive-in to give it that boost it so richly deserves.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that any of that will happen, but I would just like to see a day when this film is discussed in the same breath as some of the maybe lesser classic Argentos, although not that much lesser, to be completely honest with you. I feel pretty strongly here. Any final words before we go?
I don't really like Bay of Blood that much. Like, it's so boring to me.
It's pacing problems, man.
I tried. I mean, but you've told me I need to go further back in the time machine for Baba than that. Yeah.
I mean, if you compare Black Sunday to Bay of Blood, it's just different stratospheres of film.
Yeah.
And Bava's son had a lot to do with Bay of Blood, more than the elder too. So, anything else?
See this movie. It fits the whole concept of Obscurity Report perfectly. It is so good. Rewatching it again, I think it's a classic that just hasn't been discovered yet.
Yeah. I love doing the show because of this. I don't have to look for shit. Lauren finds it for me, which is really helpful. I mean, quite honestly, it's really helpful. And it's hard to keep up, especially when you have a YouTube channel too, and you got to juggle doing this and that. So I love doing the show for that reason. I was sad I couldn't make the last one, but I just wasn't able to be there. But I love doing this. So I hope you continue to do this kind of thing because it's fun to find something new to watch. So
we don't intend to stop. All right, Sam, take us out. What's the final word?
Wash me in his blood. Wash me in his blood.
Now.